have 30 people, they tell everybody got 500 people. So we're not participating in those, I call them steeple games. So it's not about us trying to keep up with the next person, but we are embarking on creating a holistic environment, a healthy environment that can help us find our true place in Him as a collective house.
Amen.
And we'll begin to enjoy this journey where we begin to co-labor together under Him, as far as our commitment to Him and the local church and what the Father is saying. So we went over to Ephesians 4:8-16. Ain't gonna even go through it tonight, but we were able to spend the bulk of our time. Well, we actually went through the whole chapter in Ephesians, and we're really not going to do that. But He gave us the first few verses. I think He was talking about how there's one body, one Spirit, one hope, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one God and Father of us all. And we talked about how that is related to the 7 spirits, and there was a 7 manifestation of the self-same Spirit. And then we went to we took a look at 8-10, where it talks about we had an opportunity to talk about how when Jesus ascended, before He ascended, He descended, right?
Amen.
And he ascended on high. And we talked a little bit about those Doma giftings. So the giftings that most of us may have heard in Ephesians 4:11, when we were taught in times past, those are offices. But there's only 3 offices. The 3 offices in the New Testament and the Pauline epistles, or should I say the Timothy letters, which are the construct of the local church that Paul sent to Timothy, which many people believe he was probably not even 18 and was pastoring. He was an apostle over churches in Ephesus. And so the offices that are over there it's only 3. Bishops, elders, and deacons. Not the 5-fold ministry gifts, right? So those are not offices. I know we see it on, you probably heard it in your other church, and you probably see it on Facebook and other platforms, but it's incorrect because it's the Doma giftings, which is divinely connected to the grace giftings. And those 5 are, which we'll talk about here sooner or later, those are expressions of the Christ nature, impartations of the Christ nature. Then we looked at 11-12. We seen how they're in the measure and the stature and the fullness of faith. And we talked about the faith that it's not a religious affiliation or background. So we're not talking about denominational ties when we talk about the faith that we must come into as a collective body, right? So if we're going to have what I call a collective consciousness, which is an identity as a body of believers in this location with the understanding of the corporate purpose that we have, we need to understand that the faith is not about our religious background, have all of the other ancillary thoughts and the certain captions that we have on our buildings as we talk about, and you probably know a few of them, Baptist, right, Episcopalian, all of the Protestant mainline denomination churches. So that's not the faith we've been brought into. The faith we've been brought into is the measure and the stature of the fullness of Christ and the people. It's basically about us growing up into the head in all things. That's the faith we need to be able to see, and we need to be able to ascertain as we move forward in the things of the Spirit. So, and then I think last time I stopped at, and I talked about our focus have typically been upon just the governmental function and not the community function. So when we look at Ephesians 4, it's not just talking about the government in verse 11. Midway through the whole chapter is talking about, and we spend a lot of time because those were the giftings that was restored back to the church over the last 50 years, from 1950 to now. And if you were to go and look at that particular verse and go backwards, you can see it in sequence till we get to the last one in 1990, which is the 5-fold ministry. When we're talking about how to integrate the body, and to cause the body, if you know what integration is, it just means it's a state or the act of combining or being combined into a cohesive wholeness. It means to merge, to blend, to bring into a synergy. It means to cause the parts to converge And so that's why the fullness of Christ is apropos for us to understand, and that fullness is aggregated to a body, a corporate body, through the church, members in particular, right? And that is the central focus of ministry gifts. Apostolic, like I said, apostles, they are focused on the whole. They're not just talking about the people in their building. They have a message for the corporate body. Amen?
Amen.
And so it's really about the whole body working properly. The whole body being integrated into the plan that the Father had from the foundations of the world. It is the consolidation and the joining together of every part. And every part has its own measure, which we'll talk about. Amen. God has assigned a measure to you. Amen. And you can't impose the measure He assigned to you on nobody else. Get what I'm saying? So we got to nip some of that infighting, jealousy, envy. If we find out what God has reserved for us and appointed to us, there's no room to envy nobody else.
Amen.
How many know it's going to take all of you to get it done anyway? You ain't got, I mean, come on now, the grass sometimes ain't greener on the other side. So, and you know, there's some things attached to that assignment, by the way. I don't know if y'all know that, but you know, some people get a little thirsty for a promotion and forget that when you get into that certain position in the realm of spirit, there are certain things that are attached to it. And we ain't just talking about good stuff. We're talking about the process, the sanctification, the maturation, right? And which we have to reach to as well. So we got to understand that there is a ministry embedded in the members. And we want not just to have the consolidation of those members or the integration of those members being able to be functionally healthy. That's great and that's good, but we want those members to mature. Because I know some folks that are gifted and talented and are immature. You know what I'm saying? They can quote scriptures, they can go through, I mean, and you can listen to them and you get excited. Right? It's like, man, they must have it all together. Then you find out you hang around long enough, you be like, okay, well, something missing. Yes, it's maturity. They got the lingo. They learned the vocabulary, the vernacular, you know, and it becomes the smoking gun. As a matter of fact, it becomes the fig leaves. And then we think because someone who can be rhetorically strong and can recite things, that's we look at, that's the strength. That ain't the strength. Anybody can do that. Amen. All you got to do is go in the barbershop. Everybody in there know everything. And it's intense conversation. I don't know how to, what they call it, what's y'all spots? What they call y'all?
Beauty salon.
Beauty salons. I don't know how that goes. I don't know if they have different conversations, but when you get around a barbershop, man, we have about 10 topics. I ain't got, okay, never mind. I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, back in the day, there was a lot of gossip.
Yeah, that's all you did. You talk about, and you bounce around. But it sounds good. Everybody was pretty knowledgeable.
Right.
And in the age of AI, you ain't got to do no intense study. You can say, AI, kingdom. Come on, copy, paste, kingdom. Yeah. That's what Paul was talking about in Acts 17 when he talked about those babblers. If you look that word up, you'll be shocked. It ain't talking about gossip. It's about people that's collecting other people's information, secondhand information. But let me move on. So we got to understand that even in 16 it says the whole body fitly joined together and compacted together that every joint supply. All the joints supply. And the goal of those joints, the consolidation and the integration of those joints is for the unity of the faith so that the fullness of Christ can be on display. Amen?
Amen.
That is the primary task of the body, is to become a divinely relational, coordinated ministry which upbuilds itself through love. Not built itself, but up builds itself. I mean, that takes some work to upbuild something. I know build up, but I just chose to reverse those words. Build itself through love. Ultimately, our goal is healthy and functional community. That's why he gave us the connotation of joined and knitted together by what every joint supplies. That infers a healthy and functional community. If every joint supplies, everyone understands its measure, right? And it's imperative for all those joints that have the propensity or the capacity to supply is to discover what it is that needs to be supplied to the body.
Yeah, that's it.
Am I right? We got to take that to heart. Joints have to supply. You know, you can think about it. Just because we got across the globe, be it in America, be it in any other of the countries, just because hundreds of Christians gather in a building does not mean that it's a church. There are millions of Christians, unfortunately. Millions, different sizes, different flavors, different instructions. You get what I'm saying? Different backgrounds across the globe that have no clue about what they are part of. Even more important, why they are a part of it. What's the purpose for me being a part of a local church? What's my purpose? You know, and I said something a while back. I can't remember which one of the teachings. Excuse me. But I said something that is not my responsibility for you to find out what your calling is between you and God. It's a misnomer. It's an anomaly. It's incorrect. You and I together can discover it. But the conviction of it is based between you and God.